Professor, is this the slide, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can use this one.
I will check. But I still have the problem that I hear myself with an echo.
Okay, you hear the self with echo.
Yeah.
How to solve? Maybe you open to like a, I don't know. Are you using two facility to joining in the class?
Maybe.
Yeah, so you can use only one, or with another facility. Please turn off the all microphone and volume, and thus you only one facility to like an open volume and the speaker for one facility, please.
Yeah. Okay, I have no echo anymore now.
Yes. Okay, so please.
Now I will. So I see the first slide of the presentation. That's okay. And now is the point, how do I continue? I mean, how do I go from one slide to another?
I think, okay. So wait me a moment. I will upload the slide to the Teams, and based on that, you can open by yourself. Is this okay?
Yeah. Try what is best for you.
Yes. So I will upload to the team, and then Dr. Linh, do you have any suggestion how to have professor to open and turn the slide by himself? Because now it's open by myself.
Yeah, I see the point.
I think that he cannot share his screen. Yeah, so that's the main problem. So even if he can open on the team base,
yeah,
he cannot share. So I think that it will not work. So
okay.
I think that you can share. How to say? You share the file here already, right? So
yes.
you also have to share the right for him to control it, to control the show. I know that function, but I don't know how to do that. Yeah, I heard about that function, but I don't know how to do that. Yeah. So one person share the file, right? So the other person can control that file, because the how to say, the original person who shared the
okay.
the control
I get the
right
point.
for, yeah, okay.
I get the point. So now, Dr. Linh, you have a right to do that. Please go to the a calendar, and then on the calendar for today, you click to the yes. So I will instruct you, because you are the owner for this one. I'm not the owner, so I can't do by myself.
So I will add you as the owner, okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Wait a minute. Yeah. Member. Add member. Yeah, here you are. Okay. No. Sorry. Something wrong. Okay, close. Add member. Picture. Okay. So done. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, I haven't seen the lecture. I haven't seen the function to train, because on the calendar, okay, when you click to the calendar, you will see 3 dots, and you click to that one, you change the role of each person in this one.
Okay. Wait.
So can you do like that? Because I still can't do.
It's a scheduled meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay, scheduled meeting. Yes. So,
3 dots next to the meeting option.
okay. So respond option, right? Or
yes.
So allow forwarding or something.
Yeah, you click, you try to find out something. The presenter or anyone can move or change the slide, control the slide or something like that.
No, I cannot see anything like that.
Really?
I see only respond option, right? And then the required registration. And right now the state of required registration is none. I don't know the meaning of that. Required registration, yeah. Allow forwarding. Request response, okay. Allow forwarding is now okay. So I don't know how to share that. Copy. Right? In the meeting
Okay,
option,
wait.
No.
Okay, wait. I will try another option.
Who can present everyone? Okay, I see here meeting option here. Who can bypass the lobby only? Add column bypass the lobby.
Okay, so I'm going to try the instruction from one student here using the PowerPoint list. Okay, I will try.
Yeah, I should try it.
Yeah, so I think now, Professor Jensen, you can control the slide by yourself.
Let me check.
Yes, so you can click to the slide and turn.
If I click on the slide.
Yeah, can you? You see from, okay, now you can turn, okay? Try to practice how to turn in the slide. Move the slide, please.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
But now what happens if going back is but I cannot go back, I think.
Can you see the arrow?
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I can do with my page up and page down. That works.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So please.
Yeah, so I can start.
For sure, please, Professor.
Yeah, okay. So I will start right now. Okay, thank you very much for the help. So dear students, welcome to my class on supply chain management, or a number of classes we will go through. Before we really start with the material on supply chain management, I will, in a few minutes, just introduce myself and what is my relationship to Vietnam in general. So I am from Belgium, and probably you don't know very much in detail where Belgium is located. You see on this slide Europe, and the little country in red, that is Belgium. So it's one of the smallest countries in the whole of Europe. Now, when I go a little bit more in detail, then so this is Belgium now, and you see our neighbors. In the north, we have our neighbors from the Netherlands. In the east, we have our neighbors from Germany. In the southeast, we have really the smallest country in Europe called Luxembourg, important country, but small. And then a very big country in the south. Here we have France. These are our neighbors, and we have a little bit of seaside, not too much. This is only 65 kilometers of seaside that we have. Now, the capital of Belgium is Brussels, and Brussels, of course, comes in the news a lot because the European Commission is located there. My university is in the east of the country, so not far from the German border. It's a small city called Hasselt. So this is where I did my job. What is my job? My job has been a professor in different fields of logistics. So I have been teaching introduction to logistics. I have been teaching supply chain management. I have been teaching sustainable transport. And then also, oh, I lost my screen. Where is my screen? I lost my screen.
Someone may turn off your screen, yeah. So Miss Tu Hoa.
Okay, I'm trying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to upload again, because I think because now we open to everyone can turn the slide, so that's why it may happen.
Okay. Yeah, I continue, right? Everything okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please.
Yeah, okay. So I was telling you what I have been doing. So I was leader of a group in logistics, and a number of people who did research in logistics And so this is what about my job. Now, more in detail, wait, I will see. I'm not sure if I can control. My slides. Yeah, okay. So I have been in contact with your country for quite a long time. In fact, the first time that I came to Vietnam was in 1995. So it's a bit more than 25 years ago. And so in those 25 years, I have done several things with universities or institutes or ministries in your country. By the way, that's me on the right side. So I told you I was there for the first time in 95. And in 95 and 96, I was teaching at the Asian Institute of Technology, Vietnam in Hanoi, which at that time was just starting courses on industrial engineering as a subsidiary of the Asian Institute of Technology in Bangkok. And that why did I came to AIT in Vietnam? Because this was a project from the Belgian Aid Development Agency. They were supporting before AIT in Bangkok, and when the institute in Hanoi started, they were also supporting there. Another course which I have been teaching was on total quality management in 2001 in Canton University, again by an agency from the Belgian government. Here you see some pictures of AIT CV in Hanoi. At that time, it was located in Le Ton Ton Street. Now it's located somewhere else. And that is two pictures from Canton. I had also a short scholarship for some research on intermodal transport, as well in Thailand as Vietnam. And that was with European money, which I could do this. Mostly I stayed during those months in Bangkok. But it related both to Thailand and to Vietnam. Then I have done organized a training on design of databases, but specifically for transport, and that was for your Ministry of Transport located in Hanoi. And the sponsoring for that training came from the province where I live, and that is called Antwerp. That was in 98, also quite long ago. Then I have done some service for the Textile Research Institute. In a first step, I don't know anything about textile, that is not the point, but I was like a evaluator. And so the money came again from Belgian Development Agency. And so after a certain period, the progress of the project had to be evaluated. And I was the team leader of that evaluation team in 2005. And then 5 years later, when the second phase was finished, I had to do again a kind of evaluation job, and that was in 2010. There was many equipment was bought from that Belgian project, so that the Textile Research Institute could do some tests. That is before their building, and I am on the left. On the right side is the representative of that Belgian agency, of the donor. Then some of your country fellows came to me at the university. One lecturer from the University of Economics in Ho Chi Minh City came for 3 months with a scholarship of the World Bank to work on logistics concepts in ERP, in enterprise resource planning systems. That was the guy sitting next to me. And then I had a doctoral student who came with a scholarship from MOET for a doctoral program at my university. And then I was involved for 5 years, so from 2013 to 2018, in a big project from the Belgian government, again, to in cooperation with Hue University. And we had to do some things there. I will show you. So here you see that we started in 2013 and it ended in 2018. And so these were five projects, in fact, were identified, and I was team leader of the project number 1, the Belgian team leader. Again, I lost my presentation. I cannot see it anymore.
Okay, I don't know who turned off the PowerPoint. Okay, so wait me a moment. I have to say again. Every student try to pay attention, because now we open the live like a live presentation. So if anyone can can move the slide, so try to pay attention, please.
Okay. So here we were. So I was project leader of project 1 on institutional strengthening. And so with 3 topics about governance, so the good management of the university, things in education, innovation, and quality assurance, mostly of the education. So that was the topic there. So this is the end of presenting myself. So you can see that in the last 25 years, I have been working together with some different institutes and universities in your country. And so this means I'm glad to have a new opportunity to work with you as people from the Hanoi University of Science and Technology. So this was my first presentation. You can close this presentation. I can maybe ask it myself. Yeah. And so can you now load the presentation on the first chapter, the one that I sent you before, or do I have to send it again to you?
Wait a moment, please, Professor. I'm uploading the file.
Yeah, that's good. Yep. Okay, thank you. So, dear students, for the course material, I have chosen to follow a book which is quite popular at many institutes and universities when they are teaching supply chain management. It has already several editions and it is considered to be a good book. So it's always easy to have the book and to be able to follow the full text. You can listen to me in class, but then afterwards, of course, you can read the chapter, the full chapter in the book. And of course, when we start with supply chain management, we have to understand what is really a supply chain and why is the supply chain so important in many companies. Now, the book is written by American authors. So this sometimes brings a small problem because the examples they give about companies are American companies. And some of those companies are very worldwide known, but others are not. And then sometimes they are talking about a company which does not exist in Asia, does not exist in Europe. And in case this happens, I have tried to find some information on those companies on the net, on the network, and I will explain then a little bit about those companies in case I think that you may not know them. So, okay, a supply chain. What are we going to do in this chapter or in this class? So the first thing you will have to learn is what is the goal? What is the objective of a supply chain? So why is there a supply chain and why is it important for the success or failure of a company? So in the supply chain, decisions will be taken, and decisions can be good decisions or bad decisions, and this will have an impact on the success of the company. Now, in this chapter, we will learn that there are decision phases. So not all decisions are on the same level. And I will explain later on what these phases are. The first chapter is always something which brings concepts. And a concept here is, how do we look at a supply chain? Yeah? And in this book, there are two views explained. One is called a cycle view, one is called a push-pull view. I don't explain yet now what it is, because we will go through it in detail a little bit later on. And then I will also give some examples of supply chains and explain or tell you why they have taken those companies have taken decisions and what the results were, because some results are good, but some results are bad. And we can learn both from the good and from the bad ones. So if we talk about supply chains, of course, we have to know, what is it, a supply chain? The word supply is in it, then we think of a supplier, somebody bringing goods to us. Yes, that is the part supply. A chain, then we think of some elements which follow each other and which are connected, like in real life, a metal chain, for example. So are these words well chosen, and what do they really mean? In fact, a supply chain involves all parties in fulfilling a customer request. That is maybe a strange sentence, but what does it mean? The one important in the whole business is the customer. Yeah? If there was no customer, there was no business. And the customer has a request. The customer wants something, wants to buy a product, wants to get a service. That is in general called a customer request. And so the customer wants this request to be fulfilled. When customer wants to buy a bicycle, it is fulfilled when he gets the bicycle. Yeah? When a customer wants to go to a training, after the training, his request for training is fulfilled. That is fulfilling a customer request. And who does this fulfillment? There are maybe many parties involved. When you go to the supermarket and you buy something, then of course you are the customer and one party is the supermarket. But of course the supermarket gets those products also from someone, and that someone also from another one. So this means there are many parties involved. I give a few examples. In the second line there are manufacturers, those who make the products, yeah? Then suppliers, those who bring the products to the next in the chain. Transporters, if the goods have to be transported by truck, by train, whatever, transporting companies are also involved. Sometimes the goods don't move, they stay in the warehouse. So the warehouse management is part of the supply chain. The retailers, those are the small shops or the supermarkets. And then of course, we, the customers. So you see different names with different objectives, with different jobs are involved in the supply chain. And the supply chain does also do some functions to fulfill our request. For example, a company develops new products, especially in technological products like phones or televisions. Then all the time the companies are busy with developing new products. That is a function which is done in the supply chain. Of course, the company does some marketing, has to promote the products, to let us know that there are new products. The operations to make the products. Distribution to bring the products from the manufacturing company to the next in the chain. Then there is the whole financial role, because every time we go one step further in the chain, the goods, they go from one owner to another owner. So the second one has to pay the first one. And when we as a customer get a product and there is something wrong with the product, something is broken, something doesn't work well, then of course we want a service from the persons or the company where we buy it. So you see, new product development, marketing, operations, distribution, finance, service, these are all functions, things to be done in the supply chain. Yeah. This slide says the customer is part of the supply chain. So it doesn't stop with the supermarket or with your small shop in the street. No, we are part of it. And the last example I gave you about customer service, we buy a product, we're not happy with the product, and we go back to the shop. So you see, we are part of it. We are the last part of it, but we are part of the supply chain. When we think of logistics, then in the first place, we think of the movement of goods, of products. Yeah? But that is only one aspect, because we always have three aspects in moving. The products are moving, we see them move, really, but there is also money which moves, because when the goods change owner, then there is a payment made. So there are financial flows or funds flows. And there is information to be transferred between two parties in the supply chain. For example, one party asks a supplier, do you have this product available and what is the price? That is a question, that is information. Then the supplier answers, we have so many products available and that is the price and we can deliver this in 2 weeks, for example. That is information. So information goes in two directions, from a supplier to a customer, from a customer to a supplier. Now, a few minutes ago, I told you that we call it a supply chain. Yeah? But some people have been thinking already a long time that supply chain is a little bit too simple as a name, and that supply network, a network is more complex than a chain, that supply network would be better. Or some people say, well, let's call it supply web. But the ideas are good to call it supply network and to call it supply web, but in practice we will see that everybody keeps on talking about supply chain and supply chain management. So we leave it with supply chain, but we keep in mind that it is in fact much more complex than a chain. I will show you soon with a picture. You see here a picture of a supply chain. You have an example. It's not always like that, but it is an example. The supplier supplies raw materials to a manufacturer, which make finished products, then goes to a distributor and in a warehouse. From the warehouse, a shop or a supermarket, in general called the retailer, is served, and there it is delivered to the customer, or the customer buys at the retailer. Now you see here the simple idea. This is a chain. Yeah? Supplier is connected to manufacturer, manufacturer to distributor, distributor to retailer, retailer to customers. It's like a metal chain, a linear relationship. But in reality, of course, it's more complex, I told you. For example, this manufacturer does not buy only from this supplier, but maybe from a second, from a third, from a fourth supplier. And this distributor does not send its goods to this retailer, but maybe to another one, or to another one, and other ones. So you see, this picture is very simplistic, and it is in fact much more complex, and not a simple line or chain, but a real network. That is why people say, let's call it network. But we will call it supply chain, just like many, many people still do, and will do probably for a long time. Yep. In a supply chain, we have concepts, like upstream to downstream. So if we move in this direction, we call it downstream. If we move from right to left, we call it upstream. And for example, the distributor is downstream from the manufacturer, but it is upstream from the retailer. So please remember these concepts. The whole thing to be successful, a successful supply chain, is that there is a balance. You see here a kind of balance between the supply and the demand. And that is a very big challenge for all the parties in the supply chain. If the balance is wrong, then there is a problem, and a problem leads to a cost, maybe. So everybody in the supply chain is trying to keep or to get this balance. From the supply side, if the supply side is too big, too much supply, then it means we have to store it and do nothing with the products or the raw materials. So these goods have to be stored, and so that comes at a cost. If the demand is higher than the supply, then of course not everything can be sold, but all customers will not be happy because there are not enough goods available. So, and then customers which are not happy, what do? They go to another shop, they go to another supplier, and so this is also a cost, because then you lose some money because you cannot sell at profit. So the supply chain consists of many different companies, and together they are supposed to make a balance between supply and demand. It's maybe very small, but hopefully you can still read it. You see here, if you want to get, and that's what the companies want, of course, to increase their profits, then everything should be right. Yeah? You need to produce and bring the right product. If the customer is not happy with the product, then there is something wrong. The right price, in the right place, the right shop or store, the right quantity, for the right customer and the right time, not too late, not too early. So you see, many things have to be managed in the supply chain, and that is why supply chain management has so many different aspects. And if some of these are wrong, this means we could do better and we could improve our profit. So all the time we have to be careful. Are we doing this right, this right? Is everything right? Here is an example of a supply chain. It is a supply chain of an automotive supply chain. So for cars, it is of course only a very small part of the whole supply chain, but it is a good example And you see here already, I told you, it's not a straight line in reality. It's more like a network. And this is already a good example. Yeah? So we are the customers who want, for example, to buy a car. We go upstream, and where do we buy the car? With a dealer. Second-hand car, new car, doesn't matter. Customers buy with dealers. The dealers get their car from the assembly plant. So this is the factory where the cars are assembled, where they put the tires, the motor, the electronics, the windows, windshields, and so on, everything together to make a car. That's the assembly plant. And when the car is finished, it is shipped to the dealers. We go further upstream. The assembly plant gets its products from suppliers. For example, here there are only 2 suppliers mentioned, but of course, for a car, we need many suppliers. But in this example, just for the electronic material in the car or for the powertrain of the body of the car. And then we can go further upstream. Yeah, the powertrain consists of metal things like cylinders, like bearings, which are already, let's say, half manufactured products. In the electronics, we can have many things like radios, but camera, GPS, and whatever. And these half manufactured products, of course, they exist also of smaller things like electronic components or very simple metal plates, for example. So when we go upstream, from right to left in this case, we meet all the parties which together make up the supply chain for this car. So you see, many different companies can be involved there. Yeah. I have another example from a totally different product. This is a bottle of detergent. Detergent to, for example, to do the dishes, to wash the dishes. So it comes in a bottle, plastic bottle, paper bottle, whatever, and you use a little bit of the product, and the product is called detergent, the soap. Yeah. So how is the supply chain here? So we want to buy a bottle, and we buy it, for example, in a supermarket called XYZ. I just gave it a name. Yeah. So we go upstream. Yeah. How does the supermarket get its products? From a distribution center, which is probably not the same company as the supermarket. Maybe some big supermarkets, they have their own warehouses and their own distribution, but many times they work with companies specializing in warehousing and in transport, and then we're talking about third-party distribution centers. And where do those distribution centers get their products? From the one who makes the product, and that is the manufacturer. Here, for example, I have written P&G, which stands for Procter & Gamble, which is a very big company making many different products, but especially also in the kind of soaps and detergents. They are very good. Now, to make such a bottle with detergent, of course, you need the product itself, the soap itself. It's made by, in this case, Procter & Gamble make it himself, but it could be another one. The packaging, maybe Procter & Gamble does not make it by themselves, but they buy the packaging from another company, the packaging company, and there is a plastic cup related to it to fill the cup to bring into your water to make the foam for the soap. So this can be part of the packaging, but it doesn't have to be. So maybe Procter & Gamble is buying this from the different companies. And then we can go on. The plastic cup is made by by means of plastics, which they buy from a chemical manufacturer. The packaging, in this case, it's not like a plastic bottle, but it seems to be a paper bottle in cardboard, yeah? And when it's in paper or paper-like product, then of course, the paper is made from wood, and even the wood industry or the timber industry is involved. You see, with this example, again, that many times we think only of this part of the chain. We are the customer and we buy in the supermarket, but you see that many others are involved in the supply chain. And any decision made in one of those companies will have an influence later on, and finally on ourselves, on the final customer. I mentioned in one of the sentences already, but here you see the picture. Yeah, that when we talk about supply chain, of course, the change from supplier to customer of the product is maybe the most important to think about. Transporting the product, warehousing the product, but also the two other elements are important. You have information. I gave you the example. The customer asks, is this product available and at what price? The supplier answers. Then he makes an order. Then he confirms the order. You see information in two directions. There is only one flow which goes into one direction, and that is the money, because the customer pays the supplier and not the other way around. Yeah? And in the next stage in the supply chain, the supplier is the customer, and that supplier has another supplier, and that supplier has another supplier. But always the funds go upstream, so from the right to the left. Now, we know what a supply chain is. We know that it is a little bit more complex, that it is in fact a network, and that there are three flows: product, money, and information. Now, why do we have a supply chain? Of course, this may be a stupid question, because why is there a company? A company is there to make profit. Company has shareholders, and shareholders, they want at the end of the year, they want part of their money back, so the company has to make profit. That is very clear. But now in a supply chain, we are not talking about one company. No, you have seen on the figures that there are many companies involved in the supply chain. And the whole idea behind supply chain management is that the chain, so this means all the companies, they can do better if together they take good decisions. So if every company would only think of its own in making its own profit, then at the end of the story, the whole chain will have less profit than if they work together. Of course, it's very easy to say you have to work together, because they are all different companies with different owners. But the point is that you need a little bit of trust, and you want, when they want to work together, the different companies will see that they can get even more profit. And so therefore, in the objective of a supply chain, this slide, you don't see the word profit, because profit is thinking of one company. Yeah? And we say we want to have the net value generated by the chain as big as possible. I'll come back later what we mean exactly financially by net value, but what is written below is very important to look at. The supply chain surplus. The surplus is the extra. So what brings the working together of the supply chain extra for all the companies in the chain? And so you have on the right side, we are the last part of the chain, we are the customer. And the customer, when he or she wants to buy something, this means that the customer gives it a value. Yeah. For example, if there is a product which costs €1,000, I will tell in euro, yeah, and the customer thinks the value of it is only €500, then the customer will not buy it. Yeah? The customer has in his idea a value, and only when the price is lower or equal to this value, then the customer is interested and will buy the product. So on the one hand, we have the value of the customer. Yeah? And to bring this value to the customer, of course, all the companies in the supply chain have to do something. Yeah? The manufacturer has to make the product. The transporting company has to ship the product. The warehouse has to store the products. The supermarket also has to store the products before sales. So all these things to do, making the product, transporting the product, storing the product, that goes all with a cost. And all those costs together, we call the supply chain. So on the one hand, we have a value, on the other hand, we have a cost, and the difference between is what is the surplus, the extra of the supply chain. Yeah? And this surplus, this extra money, has to be divided among all the members of the supply chain. And when this supply chain is as high as possible, this means we have a good supply chain. So this is it's maybe a little bit abstract for the moment, but this is where the supply chain is going to. And what you have to remember is that we don't look for profit of an individual company. Of course, the profit will come if the supply chain is well organized and they all work nicely together. Then the profit will come automatically. Okay, let's go on with this supply chain surplus and the objective of the net value as an example. That makes it a little bit more concrete. The example is the customer wants to buy a wireless router. Yeah, and the customer buys this at a company. Here you see the name Best Buy. It's just the name of a shop. Yeah, for a certain amount of money. And this here, as an example, $60. Yeah? So the customer pays to the supply chain. in fact, pays to the shop, but when the shop is part of the supply chain, the customer pays to the supply chain. That's a revenue for the supply chain. Then the costs, I mentioned already the cost a few minutes ago. The supply chain has to take care of the information, making the products, storing the products, transporting the products. Also, that is all about products. The money, yeah. Sometimes there are costs related to sending money from one party to another, especially if it is international payment, then there are costs. All those costs together, they are the supply chain costs. And then we come back to the formula. Yeah. On the one hand, we have the customer value, which is the $60, because the customer buys for $60. Yeah. And then on the other hand, we have the supply chain cost, and that's the sum of all those costs just mentioned. I say the customer value is $60, yeah, because the customer buys for $60. Maybe the customer has a higher value. Maybe the customer thinks this wireless router has value 70 for me, but I can buy it for 60. Yeah? The value for the customer is 70 because if he found the product for 70, he would have bought it also. But now it's 60, so for the supply chain, the 10 extra between 60 and 17 does not come in the supply chain because the customer does not buy for it. The customer simply pays 60. So that is the revenue for the supply chain. Then the total profit of the supply chain. I told you in the formula there was no profit because the profit comes automatically from the surplus, from the extra money. Yeah, we have to find a way to share this total profit among the different partners of the supply chain. And we are not going to think about individual profits of an individual company. Of course, we all know that is the final objective, but in supply chain management, we think of the whole supply chain. Let's continue. I told you the customer is the only one who brings money to the supply chain. Of course, in the supply chain, there are many payments made. Yeah? If a manufacturer buys raw materials, of course, he has to pay for it. But to the whole supply chain, the money comes only from one source, and that is we, the customer. In the previous example, the customer who pays $60. I lost my screen. Somebody took control over, so I have no screen anymore.
Yeah, I think someone is control already, so I have to ask again. You can let the student take a short break, Professor, and meanwhile, during the break, we will try to how to open it more like successfully.
Yeah.
Professor? Yeah. So
That's
I think
good.
we can. Yeah, I think we can take the student take a break for how many minutes, Professor? 10 minutes. Is this okay?
10 minutes is that's good. 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then we can try to make it better.
Yes. Okay, Professor.
Yeah. Good.
Professor, so now can you install Microsoft Teams to the computer?
I have it installed already.
Okay, so did you sign out all the do you have another account? You have another team account?
No, maybe? No, only the account you gave me.
Oh, really? Yeah, because sometimes if you have another account, it may conflict, and then you can't sign in with the account that we gave you. So if you have another account, you can sign out all the account and then sign in with the account that I gave you.
Okay, I will leave the session and I will start again with your account, yeah? Okay?
Yes, okay.
Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
So now can you try to share the content? Can you see?
No, I don't.
Cannot. Professor, can you see my screen?
Wait. Yeah. Yes, I can see. I can see your screen. Yeah.
Yes. So can you see the button lift? And next to the button lift, we have an arrow here. The point
Yeah,
I'm seeing
yeah.
here. Yes. So that is a set screen. Says content. So I put the pointer here.
Yeah, but I don't have a screen like that with the button leave and so on. I don't have this. That's the point.
For example, when I click to, okay, wait a moment. When I click to the second content, and then we will see like a set window and set screen. So try to find out on the screen how to find out the button set content. I don't know. Okay, maybe sometime maybe the screen may be different. So try to find out the button where says content. Dr. Linh, have you ever faced this situation the same as the situation that Professor Jansen faced? I don't know how to instruct him.
No. I never.
Professor, I have this capture a picture and send to the meeting chat. And can you see like have some simple? It is the same as the picture that I sent you. Okay. Now this one I try to use from the app as well.
So is the same to your Teams interface?
It looks like I have another interface, yeah.
Oh, really? So,
because I still don't get this screen with the button leave, and then next to it the share content. Okay, let me.
So the symbol is the upward arrow. Yeah, in the small triangle. It's small square or triangle. Yeah, that's symbol for the share content. I think it must have. It must have. But it's somewhere. It's in somewhere.
Maybe I'll try to download again. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
So now, are you using the web version or the software version, Professor?
I think I have it now.
Okay.
I have shared content, yeah?
Okay, very good. That's great. So now you can select either share screen or share content. So share window is okay.
Window?
Yeah,
you
I
can
suggest
select...
you to share window. Yeah.
Window.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I have to choose the file.
Yes, correct.
You have to choose a file and open it and show
I have it now. I have it.
Very good. Yes, yes.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. So can you open it in full?
Yeah, okay. Like this?
Yeah, it works. It works, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. How many minutes do we still have? Or is it time? Don't you hear me? Oh,
yes.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. Dr. Linh, please. You want to share?
Share what?
Is it?
Yeah, you talk about the time for break, right?
Yeah. Time to start
it's
again?
Up. Yeah. Time to stop already. Yeah. So please proceed.
Yep. I continue.
Yeah, please.
So we're still dealing with the main objective of a supply chain. Yeah. So I'll come back to this slide. So customer value is important. In the example, the $60 for the person who wants to buy the router, and then the supply chain cost, which we mentioned. What is the cost? Of course, there is cost of information, there is cost of shipping or storing the products, and sometimes there is cost put by the banks for changing money from one company to another one. Now, that is what the objective of the supply chain is. So how do we reach the objective? By doing good management, which we call effective supply chain management. So all the assets, all the elements in the supply chain have to be managed Yeah. And so this means that we have to always think about the products, information, and fund flows. 3 flows: products, information, bidirectional, 2 directions, and funds only 1 direction. And then the final sentence here is important. If we can increase the surplus, so the difference between the customer value and the supply chain cost, this means the whole profit of the supply chain goes on. Here is called the total pie. So it means the total profit of the supply chain, which then we are going to share among the members of the supply chain. Yeah? So the objective is increase the surplus, because more surplus brings more profit to everyone. Now, it says effective supply chain management. So this means that there are things which can go wrong, which we call inefficiencies. And we try to be efficient, try to use our means as good as possible, but in fact, things can go wrong. Here you see again that same picture I showed you before of a very simplistic supply chain: supplier, manufacturer, distributor, retailer, and customer. And what you see in the black frames is what can go wrong in the different steps of the supply chain. For example, the supplier has to show, has to bring raw materials to the manufacturer for making the product. What can go wrong? The supplier can bring the wrong products, something we didn't ask, or maybe too late because there is a problem with the machines at the supplier side. So this is an example of an inefficiency. For example, when the machine is down and the goods come too late at the manufacturer, it can be that the manufacturer has not enough raw materials, so the manufacturer cannot produce the finished product. Remember, currently, the automotive producers, the assembly plants, have big problems because the electronics are short. So many car companies cannot produce cars because the electronics did not follow them. Yeah? So this means they have shortages. So they have to stop the production line. That's another inefficiency. When a manufacturer produces too many products and the retailer does not order so much, then we have a warehouse full with inventories. And you know, keeping an inventory costs you money. So that is inefficiency. At the retailer side, it could be that the logistics inside the shops are not very well done, so that products are in the wrong place, that products are still in their little warehouse and not in the shop yet, so they cannot be sold. That is an inefficiency. What can also happen to the customer side? Yeah, so the marketing department can do promotions in a wrong way, so that the promotions come to the wrong persons. So the ones who are interested do not get the promotion, and the ones who are not interested do get the promotion. When the customers don't find products in the warehouse, in the supermarket, there is a stock out, so they cannot buy the products, and this means the supermarket has less profit. So you see all those black things, they are inefficiencies. They increase the cost of the supply chain, and remember the formula: if you increase the cost, This means the supply chain surplus goes down. So that is not a good way to do. So in this case, when you have all those black things, the supply chain should be better managed. Now I go through some examples of the supply chains as they are mentioned in the chapter of our book. I told you so that the book is using mostly American companies, not always, but many times. And sometimes there are names which we don't know, or we have, or maybe the companies do not exist anymore. Yeah? So I'll go, here are 5 examples, yeah, which I will discuss or which present to you in detail. Let's start with the first one. Walmart has increased its sales in 40 years' time from $1 billion to $548 billion last year. And that is due to their good supply chain management. Before I go to the next 4, I will deal with you on Walmart. Yeah. What is Walmart? For those who never heard about it, it is a retail corporation, yeah, and so they have very big supermarkets, which are called hypermarkets. They have department stores and they have grocery stores, and they have this in multiple countries, mostly in America and Canada, but in total, in fact, in 24 countries, where sometimes they are not so small. If you think of revenue, and so I just mentioned the $548 billion, it is the largest company in the world. So in terms of the money they get, not the profit, the money which they receive from the customer. Yeah, it seems to be also the biggest employer in the world, 2.2 million employees. So it's an enormously big amount of employees for a company in about more than 10,000 stores. So that is what is Walmart. Now I go back to there. So how come that they increased the sales from 1 billion to 548 billion? Well, the management decided to have a high investment in transportation and information infrastructure. So they wanted the transport to be effective as possible, fast from when the demand is there, fast deliveries. And also they invested a lot in information infrastructure, which means they set up information structures between Walmart itself and its customers, all with the idea to have an effective flow of goods. Now, a second decision they make, so first is a high investment in transportation and information. Secondly, they were thinking where to locate the stores. So they decided to put the stores close to the distribution centers. So they deliver the stores from distribution centers, but the stores are not too far from the distribution centers. And this means that the stores can be replenished, so they can get new products from the DC, from the distribution center, many times. So frequent deliveries to the stores. And frequent deliveries to the stores means that they can be closer to the demand of the customers. For example, if some stores see that the demand goes up for a certain product, then they can immediately inform Walmart, and Walmart, through its good transportation infrastructure, can deliver very fast. For example, if Walmart would deliver only one time per month, then the store would have to wait for a full month to have extra products, and then they would lose sales. So the supply and demand is better matched. Remember when I showed you the picture that demand and supply have to be in balance? Well, in this way, with good information, good transportation, then Walmart was able to do this. So this is downstream from Walmart to the stores. But Walmart, of course, also get its products from suppliers. They don't make products. They distribute and they sell products, but they don't make products. So they have their suppliers. Yeah? And also there, this good information infrastructure helped them to make good relationships with the suppliers. They share information with the suppliers. For example, some suppliers could look at the inventories of Walmart, and then the suppliers themselves could take a look like, "Oi, this inventory of that product is going down, so we will have to deliver soon." Yeah, so this is the reason why Walmart could increase its sales so much. Let's go for a second example here. The second example is 7-Eleven Japan. 7-Eleven has many of those shops, which probably you recognize in many countries, mostly in Asia, but they have it. Yeah? The original company, 7-Eleven, is in Japanese hands. What did they do? Here in 1974, one of the early years, they had sales for 1 billion yen. And a few years ago, I found a figure, they had 2.7 trillion. So it's 2,700 times the figure which they had in 1974. How did 7-Eleven decide on their supply chain so they could increase their sales? 7-Eleven was going for what they call a very responsive replenishment system. What do we mean by that? Very responsive means they act very quickly on what happens in the small stores. Yeah? So they want to see that when a customer comes in for a product, that they can buy the product. And sometimes they go very extreme in these cases, that they change the products during the day. For example, in the morning, many customers come in to buy something which serves as their breakfast. Of course, all those products would not sell in the afternoon. So the space taken by those products in the morning must be made free, and other products can be there which people buy normally in the afternoon or in the evening. But you see, when you have to do this as a company, then you have to play very fast and see that the right products are there at the right time. 7-Eleven has managed to do this, and so this is seen as a result or as a reason why they could increase their sales by so many times. So these are two successful examples. But of course, we have to learn also from bad examples. And a bad example is called webvan. Probably you have not heard about webvan, and the reason may be because the company does not exist anymore. But okay, let's take a quick look at webvan. Webvan was started at the end of the 1990s as a pure online company, yeah? A .com company. Yeah? So pure online, which was very successful in the beginning. They had large warehouses in major cities. And why did they have this? Because they wanted to deliver the groceries to the customers' homes. So the customer buys online and the company webvan delivers the goods to their home. Now, this is very nice in terms of service to the customers, because the customer just has to see that there is someone at home, or maybe even they could choose a time window for delivery. But you can guess that this also costs a lot of money, because the products have to be brought from the warehouses to many different places, to many different homes, which is a costly thing. And so this was a bit the problem with the company. Yeah, they were, in the beginning, they were successful, and they expanded their idea to many cities. They didn't wait long to see if their business was really successful after a number of years. So in the beginning, they were selling a lot because the customers were very happy with it, but the costs were going up and up. And in fact, they could not compete with traditional supermarkets in terms of costs. When you go to buy to the supermarket, you make the cost of transporting yourself to the supermarket. In this case of the company Webvan, they had to pay with their little trucks to bring the goods to you. So their business model was not very well done. So the customers normally had to pay a little bit more because the company Webvan was including their extra cost in the price, and then the customers saw that the same products could be bought in the supermarkets at a lower price. So those who were the customers who were price sensitive, they didn't keep on buying from Webvan, but they stopped and they went again to the supermarket. And already 3 years after the operation, they had to close down the company Webvan because they were bankrupt. So finally, what do we have to learn from that? Yeah, they put their warehouses in major cities. What do supermarkets do? Supermarkets go not only in major city, but also in all villages. They are closer to the supermarkets, to the customer. The Webvan brings the products to the customers in small vans, in small trucks. But what is a supermarket? There the goods come in with big trucks because they buy big quantities. So the inventory of the supermarkets is highly turned over, so the total inventory is less than in the large warehouses. So this means also their inventory cost is lower. And then, of course, the customer does the picking of the goods in the supermarket, while Webvan has to do it themselves. So these are all reasons which increase the cost, and this cost could not be put in the price to the consumer because the consumer did not want to pay extra, and that was the debt of Webvan. So this was like a bad example. Another bad example is a company called Borders. And what is Borders? The Borders group, the company, was a retailer selling books and music items like records and CDs. Yeah. They mostly brought these books and music items to a number of stores. Yeah. In a normal store, a normal bookstore, you can find about, let's say, more or less 10,000 titles of books. But Borders thought to be smart and say, we are going for a superstore, very big stores. So this means the customers have a lot more choice in their in the different titles that we offer. So they made very big stores, and if you make very big stores, then their idea was, then we need less stores. So less stores means that we can have in total less inventory in the big stores, and also we can employ less people, because if you have 5 stores, then you have 5 managers. If you bring it into one store, you have only 1 manager. So the ideas of this company Borders was not too bad. But then came another reality. The environment of business was changing, because more and more there came selling online. And of course, the very well-known Amazon company was the one who took the lead. And Amazon, in a very short number of years, was very successful. They were selling online, so they didn't need nice stores with the books in the stores, but they stocked the books with inventories in a few distribution centers. Yeah. Amazon had less costs, and Amazon even could have a greater variety, because they had not only superstores, Borders had superstores, but Amazon with the distribution centers had even more titles. So the customer, when he went online, could choose from many, many more books. And so the success of Amazon was the death of this company Borders. So was this a mistake of the supply chain management of Borders? I think so, because they didn't adapt to the new environment. They were always believing in those superstores, and they didn't change to the new concept of online. And so, of course, Amazon, with its online, simply went faster, and Borders Group was closed. Then I have a last example on supply chain decisions, and that is the computer company Dell, which makes a lot of revenues, and they still exist. So Webvan does not exist anymore, Borders does not exist, but of course Dell, you know, from the computer company. They do a lot of things related to computers. They develop computers, they sell computers, they repair computers, and they have support also. But in the history, something has changed. So Dell is a company which changed its supply chain because something was happening. And that is what I'm going to tell you now. When Dell started in 1993, they made customized PCs. Customized, this means that, in fact, the customer could more or less put together his own computer as specifications, and Dell would do this for each individual customer. And they could do quickly, that's important, and they could also do this at a reasonable cost. So this is very nice for the customer. The customer wants this kind of hard disk, wants this kind of screen, all the details the customer could specify, and Dell made it for you. So Dell also had it in its supply chain steps which did not exist. It's sold directly to the customer. So this means they didn't use a distribution center, and because in the end every computer could be different. They didn't have stores, no retail, so didn't have small shops, directly to the customer. So it goes quickly, and they have some steps which they skip, and you know every step needs its profit, so this means they had less cost. The manufacturing of the computers was done only in a few locations. And this is the perfect example in these locations of what they call final assembly postponement. Yeah? So Dell has all the components there, the printed circuits, the hard disks, the keyboards, the screens, and when they receive an order, they just pick together all the important things and make your personal computer, very personal. Yeah? So they could do this. What their inventory was in the manufacturing locations is, of course, all those electronic components. And they offer many different things because as a customer, we could choose many different things. And of course, they had then a big inventory with large variety of components. But components in itself are not that expensive, so that was not too bad. But then something happened. The market for personal computers has changed. We as customers have been happy even till 2005 and maybe a bit longer that we could make our own computer, decide what to do with our personal computer, and Dell would make it. Now, what happened in the market? People started getting away from this idea of building your own computer. And so the market really made a shift to less customization. When a company offered you 5 different types of computers, nearly all customers would find one of the 5 which suits them. And not Dell didn't have to make for 100 customers 100 different computers. So the market wanted this. And luckily, the company Dell saw this and said, okay, we are going to follow that market. We're going to stop building computers for each individual customer, and we're going also for less customization. We're going for a number of models, and hopefully then they keep on selling. But yeah, the supply chain of Dell is not made for this, for, let's say, 5 different models, because when other companies offer 5 different models, they put these models in shops, in a store. And Dell, they didn't have shops, they didn't have stores. So they had to start putting their computers in the retail. They didn't make their own shops, but they made use of other chains, for example, electronic shops where they also sell house electronics. There they put their 5 different models, and so the customers who came to those shops could choose the models from there. And so by this option, Dell is still a successful company. So the previous example, the Borders Group, was an example where the market changed to online and they didn't follow it, so they lost and they had to stop. Dell is a company which saw that the market was changing and they reacted in a good way, and so they survived. So you see some examples of some good examples of companies increasing the sales, the first and the second example. The third one made a mistake by going too fast and not looking very well at its costs and get bankrupt. Borders didn't follow the market and also get bankrupt. Dell followed the market and is still successful. So as a result, we should say decisions in a supply chain can be very important to keep on living, to survive, or just to die as a company. Now we switch to the phases of the decision. So there are different types of decisions. We have seen examples just of decisions, but now we're going to structure the decisions. And in fact, supply chain is a little bit like many things in the business. There are 3 levels of decisions. There are the strategic decisions, sometimes called design decisions. There are the tactical decisions, which we call here the planning decisions, and we have the operations decisions. Yeah. And what is different in that is the time horizon. You make a strategy, or a design of a supply chain, you cannot change this every year. Yeah? When you're going for a decision, for example, like Dell in the beginning, to sell directly to the customer, you cannot say 1 year later, we're going to change this idea and we're going to work with supermarkets. Dell did this only when they saw that the market was changing. So a strategic decision is a decision for many years to go. Then we have the planning decisions. Then we are talking about planning of capacity, manufacturing capacity, warehousing capacity, employment capacity. This can be changed, not every week, but this can be changed several times per year. So here we can work in shorter time periods. We cannot just say exactly if it's 3 months or 6 months, it depends upon the case, but not for many years, not for 3-4 years, and not for a week. No, so it's something in between. And then we have the operations. The operations are the things which are, or decisions which are made daily or weekly in the supply chain. Examples: manufacturing, Yeah, this week we're going to produce this and this kind of products. Yeah, daily decisions are, for example, we're going to refill the inventory of this and this product. Also daily is like we're going to ship the goods by this truck to this and this retail shop. So these are decisions which are taken at a short time. And so this means that when we're going to talk about decisions in the next chapters, we always will take a look where to put these decisions. Are these strategical decisions? Are these tactical or planning decisions? Or are these operational decisions? Good. Let's take a look at strategy. Yeah. For example, what falls within the strategy? First thing is the configuration of the supply chain. Configuration, so it means how does the steps in the supply chain look like? Do we have wholesale? Do we use a distribution center? Yes or no? Do we use warehouses? That is how the supply chain looks like. I told you just a few minutes ago, you cannot change this every year. This is a decision which is made probably for 3, 4, 5 years before you can change this. You also have to tell, when you work together as a supply chain, who is going to do what. So the different processes in the supply chain. So these are agreements which will be made between different companies, because the supply chain consists of different companies, and they have to know what exactly they have to do, what responsibilities they have. Let me give you some examples. Yeah. For example, outsourcing. Yeah. For example, transport. A supply chain could say, oh, one of our companies going to do the transport themselves, or are we going to outsource? When we need transport, we call a trucking company. That is a decision, and that's a strategic decision. You're not going to change this every half year. Certainly not. Locations and capacities of the facilities. For example, big warehouses. Where are we going to put the warehouses? Close to a highway, close to a railway station, close to a waterway, and how big the capacity. These are important decisions which have their importance for a very long time. So these are strategic decisions. Then products to be made or stored. Where are we going to make products? We will see that there is an example of a company producing clothes, and some of their clothes, it's a European company, some of their clothes are made in Europe, and some of their clothes are made in some Asian countries. The clothes they are made, which are made in Asian countries, are clothes which probably are one of the cheaper type, while the other ones are more expensive or where the demand is not very steady. So the supply chain has to say where products are made and in which warehouses they are stored. Sometimes products are stored in a central warehouse from where they are shipped to different countries. Sometimes the goods are stored in all countries where there are markets. So these are strategic decisions. Modes of transportation. I mean, they have to choose between truck, waterway, on the canals, on the seas, on the rivers, or sometimes by airplanes or by train. What mode of transport is chosen? For example, trucks probably are more expensive than the waterway, but the waterway then is slower. So you have to choose if the delivery to shops has to be responsive, so very fast changing, then of course you cannot use waterway because the goods are on their way too long. Then you have to use trucks. If you have goods which have a very low profit margin, yeah, so then you go for the cheapest, which is probably the waterway. So this also is a strategic decision. And then information systems. Information systems need to be a strategic decision. In the past, we have seen that many departments in company, they just start their own information system, which can be very small. Somebody in the department is making spreadsheets with Excel and is very good in it, and the spreadsheet gets bigger and bigger and more function. And then in another department, they use a different software, but they use the same data. So either they have to print it out and type it in again. So this is inefficient. This is a cost loss of money. So when information systems needs to be integrated, you need to decide whether you go with an outside supplier, a consultant who designs for you the information systems. Of course, you can also say we're going to have a department on our own with our own info and who develops our own information systems. But that is a long-term decision. This is a strategic decision. So these are examples of strategic decisions. What we have to remember is they are long-term decisions and it's difficult to change it. Yeah? So, of course, we don't know the future, so our decisions have to be quite robust. So we have to think of scenarios. What can happen in the past, in the future, in the markets? Are we going for fast-growing markets, slow-growing markets? And our decisions must be robust to this. So this about strategic decisions. Then we go to the second level, and these are the tactical decisions, or as we call it here, the planning decisions. So in planning decisions, we go for shorter term operations. Yeah? Think of periods, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, something like that. So we have to decide on some things. I told you about production planning, about distribution, about employees. So these are things we can change from a few months to another few months. Of course, here in the planning decisions, we are not free to do what we want because there is one level higher. The previous slide, the strategic decisions. The strategic decisions, they have been put, and when you go for planning decisions, you have to follow the strategic decisions. You could do something or you can do anything as long as it fits with the strategic decisions. Yeah. With planning, we need also a forecast of the demand. For strategic decisions, this was very difficult because we're talking about years, and forecasting over years is always difficult. You make mistakes always. Yeah? So that is why I said in the previous slide, we have to think of what can happen. slow growing market, fast growing market. That is not a forecast. That is just thinking about it and taking decisions. Here, when you talk about 3 months decisions, for example, you can make a forecast. You have data on the demand of last year. You know which products sell better in the summer, which products sell better in the winter. If you have data from more than 1 year, you can see if the demand is growing or being stable or even decreasing. So there are techniques which help us to forecast the demand. And if you have a forecast of the demand, then you can say, okay, then we have, if, for example, next 3 months, we forecast to sell 10,000 items. This means we have to make 10,000 items. So you can plan your production month by month, and you can plan also your employees to do the production and to do other activities as well. So it's a little bit different because we work on shorter term, and here we can work with, for the first time, with forecasts. Examples, yeah. Assignment of the markets from locations. Yeah. You have, for example, a number of warehouses. Which customers are going to be delivered from which locations? Yeah. Is it based on being close, not the ones who are shorted, the one who are supplied many times per week instead of only 1 time per week? Whatever reason, you have to take decisions like the market in that city is to be supplied from that location. Can you change this in 3 months? I think so. Yeah, you have different warehouses. If you decide in 3 months' time, now we're going to deliver from that place, no problem. Of course, you cannot change this every week. Because you have made contracts with trucking companies and so on. But you can change it in a number of months. Inventories. Of course, you can say we are going to produce goods in 1 time because then we have a low setup cost. But if you produce in 1 time, this means you produce too much. If you produce too much, you must put it in inventory. Is that wrong? Maybe yes, maybe no. We don't know. There could be a good reason for a high inventory. If there is no good reason, I would say no, because there is a cost related to it. But depending on the situations, you have to plan this. Subcontracting. Sometimes the demand can increase very fast for one or the other reason. Maybe a promotion. Suddenly customers want to buy your product, and then you have to make more products than you can do. Your capacity is limited. And what is then one of the options? One of the options is to go for subcontract. You go to another company which has capacity left. So not all machines are working all the time, and they work for you for a limited time of period. So can you change this every 3 months? Without a problem, I would say. You make a contract for a certain period, and that's it. Inventory policies. Sometimes inventories are filled up when the number of goods goes below a certain level. For example, on average, you have 1,000 products of a certain type in the warehouse, and then you start selling or distributing them. And at a certain moment, the inventory goes below 500, and then you say, yes, this is now the time to buy another 500. That is a policy. Can you change this policy? If there is a reason, yes, you can change this policy. You're not going to do this every week, but you don't have to wait a full year to change a policy if it is required. And then finally, promotions. Yeah? When you try to sell something extra due to a promotion, of course, you have to time this, because you can expect with a promotion that the demand is going up, and it would be stupid if there is high demand, but you don't have the products ready. So then your whole promotion is completely worthless. It serves to nothing. Again, these are all decisions which can be taken in a number of months. So that is level 2. Then we have level 3. And level 3, the lowest level, is the operational level, the operations of the supply chain, which we can change every day or sometimes every. So this, now we are even less free in doing what we have, because on the highest level we have the strategy, which is fixed. Then the previous slide, the planning, which is fixed. But within this, we have to say what we're going to do daily. Give you an example. When you decide to have transport by truck, that is a strategic decision. When you decide to have that specific trucking company bringing goods from your manufacturing company to this and this warehouse, that is a planning decision. And now at the lowest level, every day we're going to say to the trucking company, today you're going to that warehouse and you bring this and this and this products to that warehouse. So that is like a daily decision. This is an operational decision. Yeah. That is an example of transport. Another example is customer orders. An order comes in from a customer, and all you're going to do with this order is something immediately or not. Sometimes it's good to say, yes, the order comes in, let's go to the warehouse, pick the goods, and let's ship this as fast as possible. Other way is, okay, the customer order comes in, we have a promise to deliver to the customer in 1 week time, so maybe we can wait 1 or 2 days. If orders come in for the same products, then we can handle this together. But this is also done in a short time, either daily or in a few days' time. I told you about the transport, about your orders coming in. If we look in the warehouse, of course, the goods don't go by themselves to the truck to be transported. No, someone has to pick the goods in the warehouse. So you have to make picking lists. So you have to tell to the employees in the warehouse, first you have to pick this and this goods for that customer, and you put it in that location, because there the truck is going to pick up the goods in maybe 4 hours time. So you make picking lists. That is also a daily, or probably more than 1 time per day, that you have to make these decisions. So this is hands-on, this is daily operations. These are that type of decisions. So now we have seen the 3 levels of decisions, and so in the next chapters, we will see that there are how we handle the strategic, the planning, and the operational decisions. In the learning objectives in the slide early in the beginning of the class, then there was also mentioned to have different views on a supply chain. This is a bit conceptual. So how do we look at a supply chain? Yeah? And this is interesting because then we can compare supply chains. How we can say supply chain of company X is different from supply chain of company Y. And then you ask me, where is the difference exactly? Yeah? This means I can tell you where the difference is if we have a view to the two supply chains, company X, company Y, and then when we compare those two views, then we can see the differences. And in our book, they give us two ways how to view at a supply chain. The first they called cycle view. Yeah. What is it? The supply chain is divided in a series of cycles. This is still a bit abstract, but you will see when I show you an example, then it will be clear. So we will make cycles, and each cycle will be for one specific step in the supply chain. So we will have a cycle for the customer, one for the retailer, one for the distributor, one for the manufacturer. Yeah? What the cycles do, I will tell you in a few minutes. So that is one view. Another view is what they call the push-pull view. So you split the supply chain into two categories. There are processes in the supply chain which we call pull processes, and other ones which we call push processes. And the pull processes are the processes which are initiated by the customer order. So this means these processes do nothing unless there is a customer order coming in. While a push process, they start and they are executed before the customer orders. Yeah? So you work with forecasts, you think what the customers will do, what the demand will be, and then you start working on in advance. You produce in advance, you store in the warehouse in advance before the customer puts his order. So then it's called push. So cycle view and push-pull view. Now we become more concrete. Yeah? So here you see in this figure how the cycle view of a supply chain is done. So the customer has a cycle which we call customer order cycle. The retailer has a cycle because he wants goods to be replenished. When he sells goods, then he needs new goods, and the goods come from the distributor. The distributor needs goods from the warehouse, from the manufacturer. So we have a manufacturing cycle, and the manufacturer needs to buy raw materials from the supplier. So that is called a purchasing or procurement cycle. So you see, we have cycles in between two steps in the supply chain, between customer and retailer, between retailer and distributor, distributor and manufacturer, manufacturer and suppliers. And when you look at a supply chain, a real supply chain, it can happen that one of those cycles is missing, or that two of those cycles, they are integrated with the same company. But we will see in the practical details. In each cycle, we have processes. Things are being done. Now let's take a look here at the processes in the cycle. A supplier brings his product to the market and promotes the product or does marketing for the product. Then the buyer places an order. He is going to buy the products. The supplier receives the order. Yeah. Then the supplier does everything to supply the goods in the order. The buyer receives the supply, and if something is wrong, then the buyer can return some of the products. These processes are very general. You have two parties in here, supplier and buyer. We didn't see this in the previous slide. So where is the supplier and where is the buyer? Well, they are everywhere, because this supplier is supplying to the manufacturer. The manufacturer here is the buyer. He buys raw materials. When we look at this cycle, the manufacturer is the supplier because he produces products, finished products, and then brings them to the distributor. So the distributor is the buyer. When the shop has not enough products, he puts an order to the distributor. So the retailer is the buyer and the distributor is the supplier. And finally, we as a customer are the buyer, and then the shop owner or the retailer is the supplier. So we have different stages in the supply chain, and then those play a different role. Sometimes they are supplier, sometimes they are the buyer. So that is why all those processes, they come back in each of the cycles. That was the cycle view. Yeah? Now we have the push-pull view. I told you there are two types of processes, and they are either push processes or pull processes. Yeah. A pull process is started or initiated in response to a customer order. So a customer places an order, and then some of the processes start. This is reactive, they call it. You react on a customer order. A push process is initiated in advance, in anticipation of a customer order. So you work in advance. So you don't know yet the reality, because you can make a forecast, but you cannot know already exactly. That is why we call this is a speculative way of doing. You don't react on something, you make decisions based on forecasts. And when we look at the processes in the whole supply chain, you will have push processes and you will have pull processes. Yeah? And there will be a boundary. Sometimes you can have only pull processes, sometimes you can have only push processes, but many times you will have a mix of push and pull, and there is a boundary, a limit between the two of them. I will try to explain this a little bit more in detail first, and then with examples. So this is your supply chain from left to right, and you have a number of processes in the supply chain. Yeah? So here, for example, you have a process where a customer arrives. So these are all processes which are done after the customer arrival. So these are pull processes. You react on the customer order. Everything which is done before the customer order, for example, produce some goods, store some goods, these are done without knowing that this customer order will arrive. We don't know, we can only forecast. So this is speculative. These are called push processes. So you have a number of push processes, then the customer order arrives, and then you have pull processes. And this is the boundary, the limit between push and pull. And as I told, this can be different for every supply chain. The push can be very large, the pull can be very large, even completely push, even completely pull, but many times you will see there is a mix between push and pull processes. And now a few real-life examples. A company L.L.B, which is a typically American company, so probably you in Vietnam and me in Belgium, we never heard about this company. Let me show you, before I tell you this, let me show you what type of products they make. They make outdoor clothing products. So shoes for walking, for hiking, and thick clothes for outdoor activities. This is the type of products that L.L.B is making. I told you it's an American company, so that is probably why we don't know this. And they make recreation clothing and outdoor equipment. Yeah, so they make boots and jackets, but also other equipment which you have to take on, like firearms. Of course, I guess only in the United States this is allowed. Backpacks, tents. So for people who want to go with a tent on holiday or go for a few days in the nature. So that is the market of this company L.L.B. Now, how does the supply chain split up looks like for L.L.B? So L.L.B ships its products, finished products, only when a customer order arrives. Yeah, so this is the customer order cycle is a pull process. Nothing is done before the customer orders arrives in this cycle. L.L.B makes the products and also fills up the products to the shops. So you see that here two cycles are integrated. In the general, I will come back to the general one. Here you see that you're a retailer and a distributor. So this company does two jobs at the same time. So they replenish the goods, they bring up the inventory from their own manufacturing. They make the products and they see that the products are in the shops. So they decide themselves also not only on production, manufacturing, but also on the inventories in the shops. So they want that, for example, that this type of jackets or that type of boots is always available in this and this shop. That is very interesting. But in reality, those products are produced or manufactured months before the sale. So when there is, let's say, winter time, and people are going to buy a big warm jacket, then L.L.Bean cannot just start manufacturing when the winter is coming. No, they need time. So, in fact, they produce the goods 3 to 6 months before the sale, before the winter season, before the summer season. Yeah? They have to store the goods by themselves, yeah? Because they don't work, as I told you, not with distributors, so they manage this also. So 3 to 6 months, so this means the customer orders are not there. The winter has not started yet, and they are making and storing winter clothes. So this is a push process. And so they do this before the customer orders arrive. So these are push processes. Their inventory built up, their production are push processes. Now, when they are producing clothes, of course, they need to buy the fabric and the textile fabric for the clothes. When they produce leather boots, they have to buy the leather, the pure leather from some suppliers. And that is done even before the manufacturing started. So the procurement cycle, of course, is also a push process. In reality, this is like 6 to 9 months before the sale season starts. And so let's say here, beginning of winter, this is 3 to 6 months before production, and is 6 to 9 months before they put the orders, the manufacturer put the orders with suppliers for textile fabric and for leather. So you see here an example of the supply chain. Interesting to see is that some cycles are integrated and that there is a part which is a pull process and a part which is a push process. Another company, again, an American company, so they say they have stores in other countries like Canada, Europe, and Middle East and Asia, but in fact, I have never seen a store or goods from Ethan Allen, that's the name of the company in my country. So I didn't know it. I had to look for information on this company. They sell interior furniture. So they sell sofas, they sell chairs. And of course, those products not only have to be made, but they, like a sofa or chairs, they have a design. Yeah? So this company has its artists, the designers, to make the products, to look how the product look like, and then they have the real manufacturing, putting the fabrics together with the wood or the metal, which is done in the US, but they say also in countries like Mexico and Honduras. Now, the supply chain. Oh, these are a few pictures I found on the internet. So these are the type of things they make. This is a sofa, I guess it looks like leather, I'm not sure, but it looks like. This is then textile fabric, a special type of chair. And this is then a wooden piece of furniture, small table to put in inside the house. So this is the type of products. And the fact is that the customer can have some saying to do about the product. It's not that this product is there in the shop and the customer has to buy this one. Or with this paint, you see these special pictures on the on the textile fabric, the customer can also choose this. If it says, I wanted this one in gray and not in brown, and I want this with another type of picture integrated in it, then it's all okay for this company, Ethan Allen. So how does the supply chain looks like for this company? So you see the supply chain is even smaller. With L. Bean, we had 3 cycles. Now we have only 2 cycles because the customer can request quite a lot of things. Yeah, the customer order triggers the manufacturing. Yeah? As I told you here, if the customer says, I want this type of sofa with gray leather, when the order comes, then the company Ethan Allen starts making that sofa with leather seats in the sofa. So the customer order is and manufacturing cycle go together. And with L. Bean, manufacturing 3 to 6 months before the season was a push process. Here, manufacturing is a pull process. For the raw material, of course, it is different. The leather, the gray leather or the brown leather, and the wood, that is raw material for the sofas or the chairs. So this has to be bought, and it's too late when you're going to buy this when the customer order arrives. So the procurement, the purchasing of leather and wood has to be done in advance before the customer order arrives. So this is a push process. Again, here an example of a mixed supply chain. We have a pull process, even including the manufacturing cycle, and we have a pull process, which is the procurement cycle. I see it's 12 o'clock again. Can I continue a little bit? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, then, because we lost a little bit of time in the beginning, I will continue a little bit, but not too long.
Yes.
Okay? Right. So we have seen the processes, buyer, supplier, and that those processes appear in the 2 views of the cycles of the supply chain. Now, of course, this is supply chain. When we go back to the company, yeah, then we also have extra processes because, yeah, the companies are different companies. So they have to communicate in one way to another. If they work together in a supply chain, then they have to communicate probably a lot. And therefore, we have something which are called macro processes. So these are processes between companies. Yep. And here on this slide, we have 3 examples. We have one which is called customer relationship management. We have one called internal supply chain management and one called supplier relationship management. I think the most well-known is CRM, or customer relationship management. What is it? These are the processes. I'll read just what is here. at the interface between the firm or the company and its customers. So at the interface between, so this means the communication between two of the players in a supply chain. The firm, its customers. But remember what I told you already more than one time, the firm can be anyone. Yeah? It can be the retail, it can be the distributor, it can be the manufacturer, it can be the supplier of raw materials. And the customer can also be all of them. So the firm does not exist and the customer does not exist because we have several interfaces. Yeah? For example, let me go back here. You have here an interface, yeah? Because that is Ethan Allen, and these are other companies. Yeah? So in between those two are processes which are called CRM. Here, with L.L.Bean, we have even more. You have here an interface, and you have there an interface. So we'll see later what is CRM, but now you can already locate these processes between companies in the supply chain. Then we have internal supply chain management. We don't know this very well because, as it says, it is internal. These are processes inside one of the companies. Yeah? These are also macro processes, but they are internal, not between the companies. Here, between the company and its suppliers, and here, between the third one, supplier relationship management, between the company and its suppliers. So let me go back and show you the three. For L.L.Bean, so we have here in that processes customer relationship management, because the customer is a customer of L.L.Bean. Here also, because L.L.Bean is a customer of the manufacturer. And we have supplier relationship processes between customer and L.Bean, because L.Bean is a supplier, and between L.Bean and the manufacturer, and the manufacturer and the supplier, because they are supplying raw materials, so they are suppliers. Internal here, we have internal processes, internal supply chain management within L.Bean, within the manufacturer, and within the supplier cycle. So those really split the companies in the supply chain and also look at the internal things. This is an example of what could happen there. So if you pick out one thing from the chain, and so one company in the chain has a supplier and has a customer. So the customer has management to do with the company, the supplier has management to do, and these are internal ones. And these are some examples of where we have to look at. Yeah. This all goes about sourcing. Sourcing is deciding whether you source in your own country, in far away countries. This has to be management in SRM. Negotiating with your suppliers, that is also a process. The process of buying really the goods, and then all types of collaboration, because the supply chain does in the first place collaboration between members of the chain. How are we going to do the collaboration? How does it work? Who informs who? On what basis? How we split the profits and so on. internal into the company, we have different types of planning. Yeah, the 3 levels: strategic planning, and then the demand and supply planning on the tactical and operational level. We have to decide on fulfillment. So how we going to buy from the supplier, how are we going to deliver to the customer, and then also customer service. How do we going to support the customer if something goes wrong, if something does not work, if goods have to be returned, and so on. These are examples of small processes which belong to internal supply chain management processes. And then finally, the customer relationship processes deals with the markets, which customer belongs to which market, which is the price setting, how we're going to do the selling process, are we going to use a call center or not, or do we expect the customers to find the promotions themselves, and how do we manage the orders? These are all processes. Not every company will have this, or not explicitly. Not company will have all this planning or field service, but they can be examples of those processes in the supply chain. I intended to go through a number of examples of supply chain, but I will postpone this to the beginning of the next class because it will take a little bit too much time to do this now, or I have to go through this very fast, and that's also not the idea. I will go through these examples in more detail next time. So this is the end of my class. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Zesten. So yeah. So do you have any ideas? I think you should raise your hand. Students? Yeah. Or we can stop our class right here.
Okay. Then I'll see you next time, and hopefully we can we have no technical problems then, so that everything will go fast. Okay. Wish you a nice remaining Sunday. Saturday. Yeah.
Excuse me, Professor.
Yes.
So, yeah, before we stop the class,
Yeah.
I would like to you and all the students about the schedule for next time, because as I discussed with you for the first class, we tentative made it on the weekend. All right. So if student can find out a suitable schedule on weekday, and that is suitable with the schedule from professor, so I think we can discuss how about the find out the most suitable schedule for all of us. How do you think, Professor? How about the weekend with you? Weekend schedule, is this okay with you? And how about the student? If we study on Saturday afternoon like today, is this okay?
Let's say for the month of October, let's leave it as you planned it. So on Saturday and Sunday in the weekend. Yeah. For later, maybe if the students find a place in some weeks, then we keep the weekend free. But let the students discuss among themselves and come up with a proposal. If they say, okay, we keep it all in the weekend, then I will agree with that. If they say in some weeks we have free on Wednesday afternoon or Friday afternoon, then we can change. But for the moment, certainly for next class, let's leave it on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, so far only one guy, he has a schedule conflict. He has the other class on Saturday afternoon. So I think that they have to discuss among them before they give the proposal for us, for you and me. Okay, yeah. And then we will decide the time for class. But I think that at first next week we still keep that time. Okay, from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. So
yeah,
we still keep, yeah.
In the schedule, I think the next class is in 2 weeks' time, right?
Yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Let's see if I can. Wait, I have the revised schedule. I have it here. Yeah. It was in a mail. Let me check my mail for a minute.
No. You don't need to go to mail. We should go to the on the team. In general information on the team. Yeah. I upload the information already on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So next week we have class off.
I thought so, eh?
Yeah. In the next week we have no class.
No. So the next class is on 23 October.
Yeah, that's right.
Because you mentioned that 16 October you are busy, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is why you set class off. So we'll meet again on 23 October.
Yeah.
Or I meet you.
Yes.
Or I meet you tomorrow, of course.
Okay, very nice class today. Yeah, Professor Zashan.
Yeah, okay.
Have a good time, Professor.
Okay, have a good time. See you tomorrow.
Okay, yeah. I would like to introduce you the guy who will be representative for our class from the student. His name is Lâm. Yeah,
yes.
Can you say something, Lâm? Yeah.
So I'm here. Hi everyone, and I'm really nice to see you, Professor, and I hope that we will have a really good time together, and really good time sharing our knowledge, and yeah.
That's it, yeah. That's why I'm here, to share my knowledge with you. And I think we can do it well. I'm quite sure you will look a little bit different to supply chain management after all these classes. So then, of course, I will bring you a lot of knowledge, and then you have to select for yourself, or for the company where you work or you're going to work, what is important and what not. But that is with every topic. I think you have to select yourself. But as a lecturer, we have to tell you everything. Okay?
Yeah.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. Okay. The Professor Zasson, can
Yes.
we communicate on the Teams? Because we have we have the chat box on the Teams, so we can use that.
Yeah,
we can
I
chat.
saw it.
Yeah. So if you need something to tell me, you can chat with me. Okay.
Yeah.
Or from my side, yeah. Also like that. If I need something to discuss with you, I would like to use the team.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I have a question. Can you provide the slide before the class? Before about 1 day before class.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
we can
Sure.
do better in this class.
Yeah.
Prepare better. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. 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 I will. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Shall I leave the session now?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Have a good lunch. Yeah.
Yeah. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Goodbye, Professor. See you tomorrow.
Goodbye, Professor.